All right, let's call this meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee to order. Present, we have myself, Doug Wall, and Nate, check off the other people that are in attendance.
Yes, Antonia Marinucci.
Here.
And Marika Clark.
Here.
Thank you. Good morning. And then Alex Frondorf and Margaret Land will be joining us shortly. The first item on the agenda is 4604 Clinton Avenue. Chris Root is here to speak to this. So Chris, go ahead.
All right, thank you, everybody. We essentially took the feedback provided in terms of colors and materiality into consideration on this. If you want to go to the site plan first, this is obviously the location of the site. If you want to go to the next slide. The existing conditions, which everybody has seen at this point, with the vinyl siding applied over the original wood lap siding. If you want to go to the next slide. Some changes that were made in terms of the site plan based on feedback. We are calling out, obviously, that the existing chain link fence is to be removed in front of the house, and we are adding additional landscape on the porch. If you want to go to the next slide. No significant changes to the floor plans from the previous presentation. Obviously, the biggest changes that were made, if you want to go to the next slide, were to the elevations. Now, essentially what we did here was there was a fairly significant change in terms of color palette based on feedback. So we've essentially gone from the gray to a indigo blue for the siding that is going to replicate the original siding. The intent design-wise is to preserve as much of the original siding as possible and then do replacement where needed. One of the things we found in discovery is there's quite a few portions of that original siding that were impacted by putting that vinyl over it. So the intent is to restore it. One of the other things you'll notice is we have changed all the soffits, fascia, porch. We've changed that over to white to give some contrast with the windows and with the indigo blue color palette that we are going with. The porch columns have been changed to include a base and also crown accents that will happen on those columns. And I'll show you materials in a bit, but essentially the porch columns and the porch rails will go to white. And then we also, per recommendation, we added boxwood landscaping in front of that porch. And then instead of replacing the existing lattice work underneath the porches, we're going to go with a vertical batten board as a replacement in those locations. So if you want to go to the next slide. So essentially we'll have the lap siding in indigo, and then all soffits and fascia will be white. We are proposing a Quaker residential double hung window, which you can see the specification in here. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see that the railing will be TimberTech railings, which are essentially a clad railing that will go in that will have the first of the two profiles that you see in there. And then the columns will essentially be a Versa wrap over wood. So that'll be white Versa wrap that goes over those columns. This isn't the best picture, but essentially it's white Versa wrap cladding that goes over the wood columns for the porch. So those were the biggest changes.
What size is that column wrap?
I'm sorry?
What size does that make the columns then? Are you just going to go over the existing columns with that wrap?
Depending on the condition of the existing columns, some of those columns may need to be replaced. So What we're showing now, we have the column core would be a 6x6 with the wrap over that. And then it would have the, if you can zoom in on that front elevation a little bit. Essentially what we're proposing is you would have the column base and again, an accent piece and then the crown at the top of the columns. And then the door, I revised the door. The initial door that was in the CAD drawings that we were showing previously was the storm door that was in front of this door. The intent is for the existing door to be refurbished, and this represents the actual profile of the existing door.
So the one thing you're not showing on these elevations, and I assume that it was just sort of left out because you haven't uncovered all the original siding yet, is that there are probably 4-inch corner boards at the corners. This doesn't show any corner boards, or do you know whether or not the corner boards are there? And if they are you going to paint them the white trim color too?
If there are existing corner boards, those would be white, yes. And those would be maintained, correct. And that's a demolition discovery item.
Right, you don't know yet, so, okay.
Correct.
Good.
But the intent would be whatever's underneath there is going to be preserved and or replaced to match existing to the greatest extent possible.
Do any other committee members have questions or comments?
I
what-
appreciate, Chris, the work that you've done to incorporate a lot of the comments from last time. So thanks. I think it's looking, I'm much happier with this version. So thanks for that.
Yes, it's
Thank
much
you.
better. What is the, I don't see a dimension on the railing height. What is the proposed height of the new railing?
I would have to go in and I'd have to go into the core file and check that, but it's essentially the intent is to match existing railing heights for that porch.
Okay, Nate, can we go back up to the existing photos? Okay, good. Well, I just wanted to see again what the railing height looks like, which it looks like it's 32 inches or somewhere thereabouts. So, yes, I think you should maintain existing railing height. Good.
If anything, it might be 4 inches higher, but that railing's in really rough shape. So obviously that's all coming out and being replaced.
Well, I think on houses like these, the 32-inch looks more appropriate than the 36-inch. And I think you could probably stretch the case to say that you're kind of replacing in kind, although you're not in kind. I mean, so
Right, right.
I would try to push the lower railing height to make it look better.
Okay. Absolutely.
Chris, could you clarify, and I apologize if you said it and I missed it, the soffits and fascia, what the materiality is there?
The materiality on that, those will probably be clad over the existing. So it's going to be a weatherproof material similar to the Versa Wrap. Just in terms from a maintenance standpoint, with winter and everything else, it's going to be clad over what's there now with a material similar to the Versa Wrap.
I'm hesitant on the Versa Wrap and wrapping these elements in a PVC product. Like Jessica or Margaret's not here. She usually gives us a pretty solid rundown of what is appropriate in terms of PVC products. Jessica, do you have any input or opinion on that? What ends up happening a lot, Chris, is when we approve these plans and then things just get wrapped up in like vinyl or vinyl-like products, and it feels very unauthentic to the renovation. So that's where my hesitation on that kind of those two details lies.
Okay.
Do you have
Oh,
any
Margaret.
information about the wrap that you're planning, like the Versa wrap, or is that still just planned to be wrapped?
I'm sorry, say again?
Oh, do you have, like, is that what you're going to be using regardless of anything else, or is just?
That's what the contractor has proposed, and that is what has been used on other projects that he has done.
Mhm.
And that's certainly
Mark-
we,
Sorry, Margaret, you just joined us and Chris just did his presentation and he's presenting a product that the contractor is proposing called Versa Wrap, which is a PVC product, both for the columns and for the soffit and fascia. And I'm hesitant on a PVC product in those applications, but I wondered if you have any insight on this particular material.
I had the same hesitancy, Nia. But I have not seen this material. This is where I wish we could have an in-person meeting and have a sample in front of us. But reading into my material, seems to be a lot of concerns about joint shrinkage and changes in our more northern climate and our freeze thaw climate. From what I've read, fiber composite is a preferred material over this if you're not looking to use real wood.
I just joined and I apologize for being late, but I had the exact same concerns just expressed.
I also think, Chris, and this is just off of my learned experience from my last two presentations at Landmarks, is that the dark body color palette has been receiving some pushback. I've just done two that were in that really deep blue range. So maybe just, it's not conditional for me at all for you to change that, but maybe just to anticipate that feedback potentially.
of course.
That was my last two experiences. I would say if you were open to perhaps an alternative material than that Versa wrap, whether it be a wood or composite, a different composite material per Margaret's recommendation, or even like a hardy or cedar, I would be comfortable moving to approve with that condition, as well as the recommendation to doing a 32-inch railing height.
Okay.
To my colleagues.
I have one other quick question. On the left elevation, on the existing conditions photos, it looks like there's a couple of smaller, like little basement windows that have a glass block in there. I don't see those denoted at all on the drawings. Are those what's the plan for those?
The plan for those is to maintain those.
Just as
So
is.
I'll get those in there. Yeah.
And Chris, if you went over this, I apologize. Was any more consideration given to providing alley access, rear access to the home for vehicular access?
The owner is not amenable to that. That was kind of a non-starter with them. They want to maintain the existing curb cut with the drive.
You know, while the curb cut is there, the drive is completely out of keeping with the historic district and would be the only house on Clinton and one of the, I struggle to think of another one where you would have the driveway in a similar position. And I think that going through all this effort to rehabilitate this house, it should be done right and the access should come off the alley. And I feel very strongly about that. Because this would be entirely out of keeping with the context of the neighborhood and of Clinton Avenue in particular.
Well, Nate, could you scroll back up to the site plan for a minute? Down one more. That, yeah. So we discussed last time that this is already 2 parcels, and you know, we haven't seen any design for the proposed units in the back, and you don't have to do that because it's another parcel. Is there a plan developed yet for vehicular access to those units? Is there any thought to that? In other words, are those units gonna have
Those,
garage? I mean,
other than having, yes, those would have garages that face off of Weed Court. Essentially, they would be townhomes that would have, I apologize, my dogs are fighting right now, stop.
Well-
The intent is for vehicular access for those townhomes off of Weed Court where you can see the drive apron, and then those being proposed future, we have not fully developed those plans for those. But that would be the vehicular access would be off of Weed Court, yes.
Is that gonna be like the front door for those two? Because I don't see any, is there a plan for an easement access from the street for a walk to go back there, so that their fronts are facing?
There would be pedestrian access as well, yes.
And where would that be?
That has not been planned out at this point because these are proposed future.
Right, but if the easement that Doug's speaking of goes to Clinton Avenue, that would be shown on the rendering in front of us.
I apologize for being late as well. Was there any discussion about what the windows are? I just read that it was referred to as a Quaker window.
Correct. And that has been used on other projects in the neighborhood.
Is that a manufacturer?
Yes,
Because typically we would like to see a cut sheet to understand, the dimensions and the materials.
Okay.
What kind of window is it? What is the material?
the one shown currently is similar to an Anderson 100 series, which also has been used on other projects in the neighborhood.
So does that mean it has a vinyl clad exterior?
It does, yes.
Yeah, typically we don't approve those. If typically we would approve an aluminum clad wood window.
Which, yeah, and we could upgrade that to an Anderson 400. That's a discussion I would have to have with the contractor. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a more typical or a Fibrex material if that is preferable to a clad wood.
Chris,
Chris,
who's the builder?
Cleveland Custom Builders.
And is he also the owner in this scenario?
The owner is one of his partners that is a realtor.
Okay, I feel like I'm not sure like what the reference is to other projects in the neighborhood, but we've gone through several with Tony over the last few years, and I feel like
Yeah.
he should know better at some of these. I'm not gonna lie to you.
And these material recommendations are coming from Tony, yes, so.
Yes,
And
but
I
he
meant to
also
say
has done enough
fiber.
work, I think, to know that what some of these products that he's proposing are not going to fly. I don't know what projects you're referring to, but we certainly haven't approved anything final in my time on the board, which is about 4 years. So
same. I've never voted for a vinyl window in my life.
Yeah. And I misspoke.
my
I meant
friend-
to say fiberglass rather than the Fibrex because that has the PVC in it. So fiberglass or aluminum clad wood.
One of my colleagues, Jason, has a house just up the street that is using an Anderson 100 vinyl window. So.
I don't
well,
believe that's what was approved. I know that house. That was not what was approved.
No, I agree with Alex.
So there's, we'll add that to the enforcement list then. So I think we need to see some more details before we can approve this. Windows, we'd like to see it come back with a different material for the porch and the wrapping. And if you are representing that there's going to be an easement, we're going to need to see that on the site plan. And I won't speak for my colleagues, but I can't support this with the vehicular access coming off of Clinton.
Even though it's a existing condition?
Yes,
Okay,
Chris, are you scheduled for landmarks next week?
yes,
Okay. You still have the right to move forward and go ahead to landmarks, even pending today's decision. Just I would ask, are you, or is the committee asking to table this right now, or are we asking to take a vote? What is?
my preference would be to have it come back with the issues that we've discussed being addressed. If
I think that since Chris, you need to go back and ask the owner about if he's okay with, you know, the aluminum clad, you know, windows on the front at least, to satisfy that requirement. And you know, maybe re-discuss with him the vehicular access. You know, he's going to need a lot of to you know, even though those units haven't been designed, what's penciled in there is going to have to, it's going to entail several significant variances with 3 feet of setback on either side, and you know, site lot coverage and so forth. I think it would be helpful if he kind of took a little more thought to the idea of what he wants to put back there. And I don't know, maybe this is I'm not sure if Landmarks has, since it is a separate parcel, but he owns them both. If, you know, we can, you know, leverage any recommendations that we have to provide that vehicular access through this other parcel from the back. Because technically that other parcel isn't part of this proposal. So although I agree with everyone that that would be preferable, I'm not sure if Landmarks could enforce that kind of recommendation. So anyway, I agree that we would like this. I think we would, the consensus is we would like you to come back here and address those other things. But in order for us to vote on tabling it, we'd have to have your consent to do that, Chris. And if, as Nate said, you have the option of just going forward to Landmarks and, you know, take your chances with them. You know, I imagine you have a little bit of frustration that you've been here twice now, and we're sort of asking you to come back and rethink things, and you have made a lot of progress on this. So what's your thinking on this, Chris? What do you think you want to do?
Chris, you're on mute.
I personally, I would like to proceed just because of schedule. I would like to proceed with going to Landmarks with the caveat of incorporating your suggestions in terms of windows and everything else. I will circle back with the owner in terms of drive, because that's essentially been a non-starter. I can go back and have the discussion, but
well, what we're having also is a bit of a trust factor here. If you're telling us that we've approved certain designs in the past and the builder has gone ahead and disregarded those conditions and put in windows or other treatments that were not approved, I am less inclined to cut anyone any slack here.
Understood. Understood.
So if you want to proceed to Landmarks, you're fine, as they say. My motion will be to deny then, and you can proceed downtown with a denial should the committee go along with it.
All right, well then, unless anyone else has any more questions or comments from committee members, then Alex is proposing making a motion to deny.
Well,
Wait, I'm not clear. Are we actually voting though, or is there still the option to table?
No, we're voting to deny. Chris says he wants to go forward. So that sort of requires us to take a vote on what we're looking at here.
So I will, if that's the case, I will move to deny as presented. I would ask that Nate convey in that motion all of the comments and the reasons for that motion to deny to Landmarks.
All right, do we have a second?
Can I have a
I'll-
clarification first? Chris, are you saying that of the comments people have made, you're willing to make the changes on the windows and the fascia and everything? The thing that you think is not going to work is the drive on Clinton. Is that right? The only thing that we are at an impasse over
Correct.
is the drive?
Correct.
Well, if I may, my understanding, Chris, is that you had to go back to your client to discuss the windows, the exact type of windows, and the material cladding for the porch, and that you could not provide us here today with an answer to those questions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so Marika, I think that takes care of that, unfortunately.
Because I guess my opinion on this is, and again, like, in terms of schedule, obviously this isn't ideal, you know, if we need to move forward to Landmarks, because like, to me, like, Alex, I agree with you that I think it would be better to have access from Clinton. And I also agree that being able to show an easement for pedestrian access, at least for the townhouses, is better. But to me, because there's an existing condition of a drive off Clinton, I would not personally vote to deny just based on that. But it feels like a muddy situation because Chris is saying he thinks it would, I don't know. I'm just not.
Right, we don't have definitive answers on whether or not they're going to elect to follow our window recommendation or our materiality recommendation as it pertains to the porch. If you could make those representations, that might be a different matter, but he's unable to for reasons that are understandable, but he's
right.
unable to. So I can't then go along on a hope and a prayer.
I guess my question is, in the past, we've done things where we would vote to approve with a number of conditions, meaning it would not be approved without those conditions being met. Is it a different situation here?
I think typically in those cases, it's the owner that is agreeing to make those changes. And obviously we can't ask a representative to confirm those changes on behalf of the owner
No,
if the owner needs
So
to
since the
provide
owner's
input.
not here, we can't really do that.
Unless the representative has the authority to say, yeah, we'll change all this.
Yes, that's slightly different. However, our recommendations that would go along with this conditional approval are those things. And so those will all come before Landmarks for them to decide one way or the other. So
Okay.
I guess we look at this two ways. We can either follow up on Alex's motion to disapprove, or we could entertain, that could be withdrawn, and we could entertain a motion to conditionally approve based on these compliance with these conditions, and then Landmarks can take that official if we voted yes, or we could just vote on approval, and if you don't like the approval, we vote no. Sort of a.
I mean, do we have enough details though? I mean,
Yeah,
we
I don't
can-
think we have enough to make a vote. We don't have product material sheets. Were too many possibilities of what those materials could switch to if they do change.
All right, I understand. I go along with it. All right.
No,
well,
but I mean, Doug, to be clear, my preference is to table and return to address all of these things so they can go downtown with an approval with
Right.
whatever conditions might exist. But Chris, the applicant, has declined that overture, so we're sort of left in the situation we are.
Right.
I personally, if this wasn't schedule driven, I would prefer that, Alex. I would prefer to table and come back. But without having the discussion with the owner on that, because then if we can't go to landmarks next week, that pushes the whole schedule. So I'm torn between.
And
I
Chris-
don't want to create intransigence with going in front of landmarks with a denial. I mean, I would
Chris-
obviously prefer an approval.
I hope you know that too, we are, like Martha said, grateful to you for your changes. And I, understand that you're advocating for what your client's desires are. And while I'm sensitive to the timeline issue, I also stand by that your client knows what should be approved in this. And if they're wanting to continuously put products that are not going to be approved or that they've switcherooed after approval, that's kind of their risk, right? I'm not unsympathetic to your position as the architect. I just mean it's kind of what it is.
Okay, so here's what I think is going on here. If we vote to deny, I mean, we're just an advisory body to landmarks anyways, goes to you, Chris, and your client. And so if you speak to him in the meantime, if we vote to deny based on these reasons of not having quite enough information, but you get that information and it conforms to our recommendations. In the meantime, well, that improves your case with landmarks. So even though we may have voted to deny, you still have time to correct those situations when you go down there, and it won't look as bad. And frankly, sometimes landmarks disagrees with our recommendations, so we're not the final authority on any of this stuff. We're making recommendations.
I will say, yeah, so you can make changes, include more information to the proposal with landmarks after hearing, a denial or approval from the local committee. And then when you're at landmarks, mention that you've addressed the concerns that the committee had with the prior design.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Right.
fine with that.
Okay, good. Well then, Alex, we'll follow up with your motion and looking for a second.
I'll second.
All right, Nate, please call the roll.
Thank you.
Can you restate the motion?
Yes, so what I have is the motion is to deny based on the window choice, the Versa wrap material, and needing to see more details and product sheets on all those things. Is there anything I'm missing here?
Yeah, we're not approving preferences, wood-clad windows, a composite material that is not vinyl based for the porch, more details for the porch. And though I would like my comment, though this is not part of the motion, that I object to the vehicular access coming from Clinton.
Well, I'd be okay with including that in our reasons for denial.
Okay, then I will include that. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so I will call the roll. Doug Wall,
Aye.
Alex Frondorf,
Aye.
Margaret Land,
Aye.
and Tony Marinucci, and Marika Clark.
Aye.
Okay, Jessica, do you just want to let Chris know when you need that presentation by for landmarks? Just to make sure they have time.
Yeah, so a week before the meeting. So I'll follow up with an email.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, our last project today, second project, last project, is 3929 Lorraine Avenue. This is here for final review. It's been seen twice by the committee, and I believe Catalin Tomaszek is here to speak to this.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So we have added some more details to the drawings, to the sheets. Actually the first two sheets are the same. So if you go to the third one, that's where you have. So the committee has requested canopy section, or more details on the canopy in regards of how it is attached to the existing building and also the drainage. So we addressed that in this section. We did not move the project to the construction drawing phase yet, so I cannot provide like more detailed drawings, but this drawing shows how we would like to solve the drainage. So we would basically collect the water. It's a controlled drainage through a downspout, and it is daylighted as it's shown below near the street level. So I've seen other examples on the street that the drainage basically leaves the water out on the side, like on the sidewalk on the head of the pedestrians, basically, and we don't want to do that. We don't know if the existing canopy has a drainage. If there is an existing drainage option that's better than this, we would like to tie into that, but we don't have any information on that yet. I also added material details for the wainscoting. So the last presentation we had large format tiles, slate tiles, that the committee had problem with the texture of that. So we went back to an earlier option, a black granite slab. The client is now okay with that. So yeah, we had to discuss with the client if that's if it's what he would like to see. So the black granite, the least amount of grains, so it's the black as possible that we can get. This is what we proposed for the new wainscoting material now. I also provided like a more detail on the canopy ornaments, as you can see on this better scale drawing. So it is a design that we came up with. It's an Art Deco inspired design, and as it says on the notes, it's a black ornament, but has a brass background. So the brass is not overpowering. It's mostly black, but you see some brass details that you can also see on the door and the grab bars and the handles. I also added some details for the storefront and the windows. So as we discussed earlier, we proposed double hung windows for the first floor, windows with mountains. So this picture here shows a grill. We don't want that. It's just a picture that I could find of this windows. We chose the Pella Architect series windows, which are very simple profile windows, and aluminum clad is available in that series, which is exactly what that detail shows in the corner. So aluminum clad wood windows in black color is what we are proposing for all the windows and also for the storefront. The storefront is not part of the Architect series, it's a separate product, but the doors of this that you can add to that can be also from the Architect series. So what we are going for is a very simple profile. We don't want anything too rustic looking or too, yeah, I could not find a better picture of the storefront, but it's also a very simple profile. So this sheet shows our proposed gate and fence design. So on the top drawing, you can see this sliding gate with a pedestrian gate. So as you can see, it's not arched. It's very simple. We're proposing a 4-foot high driveway gate and fence on the street side, and in the with a warning light. So I also added a picture of that. It's for better visibility and for a safer solution. And in the backyard. So there is an existing chain link fence, which we don't know who owns that, if it's the daycare center or this property, but there is a way to make it a privacy fence with these privacy slats. Yeah, so essentially we have not changed anything on, there was one comment for the sign. So I lowered the sign on the elevations. But also, as I mentioned before, signage is not part of this scope, but we wanted to show the location and the approximate size of it, so I lowered it. It's as you can see on the elevation, it looks more like this original drawing from 1933. Yes, I think that's all that changed in the presentation. Do you have any questions?
On the canopy detail where you're showing those details, are those, I can't read all of your note, it's too small there. Does that have some depth, some relief to it, or what are those little panels exactly? What are they made of? You know yet? Low
Yeah, it's a
relief?
metal ornament painted black, and yeah, it has some depth to it. So the brass sheet behind the relief is, yeah, it's some depth. As I said, we are not in the construction phase yet, so this is design phase.
Good.
I don't have like drawings for that unfortunately, but yeah, so there's that. It's this picture shows a shadow, so it means that the idea is to for that relief pattern to show a shadow or cast a shadow on the sheet behind it.
Okay, thank you. So I think you've done a good job of answering our questions. I think the black granite is much more authentic choice than the slate texture. I appreciate your window details that you provided those. And I didn't see on the site plan if you said you called out the height of the fence as 4 feet. You mentioned it, but I didn't see it called out on there. Does it say somewhere on there that the fence and gate are to be 4 feet high?
The gate on the street side.
Says 4 foot plus or minus.
Okay.
Yeah, I always had to, yeah.
All right. That's fine.
I think my only comment is to clarify or to specify that any mullions in the I think it's by default with the architect series, but that the mullions be simulated divided lights and not between the panes on that front facade. Well, and throughout the project.
But you said there are no mountains, right? Didn't you say there are no mountains? It's just a picture that's depicted there. You're not actually.
There is no, the elevation shows mountains, so we proposed that, but not that style that's on the
not the prairie
photo. Yeah.
Yeah, not the prairie configuration, but so is that agreeable or part of that spec?
That the mountain is like on the outside of the.
Yeah,
Through
it's
divided
simulated.
window light, yes, we can
Yeah.
look into that and provide
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's provided.
Okay.
Yeah, I
think
think I saw
it is on that level. I think at the architect series it's the default, but just to make sure that you don't lose that dimensionality when it's between the panes, we want that expressed through the SDL.
Yeah, I think
satellite.
I've seen that there are options. So yeah, that's definitely that's definitely an option. I will for the notes.
I'm amenable to the privacy slats on the existing chain link. My request, and again, like you have the maybe misfortune of my children going to that daycare, is that the rear of the property have a 6-foot fence, not a 4-foot, if possible, for both privacy and access. And I would really request too that the the chain link that is existing be maintained. There have been a ton of issues, and if you guys, of trespassing and people trying to cut through the property, people coming and doing drugs at the property because both the daycare and this building because of the lack of visibility. So 6-foot fence would help cut back on people using this as an attempted pass through and or a hidden kind of alcove to do drugs, which has been a consistent issue over the years. So that's just my
okay. So you know that
Mhm.
sorry,
ahead.
you know that the existing chain link fence there is just 4 feet high.
Is it 4 feet high at that location?
I'm not sure.
No, I think my understanding, I guess, I don't know every single panel of the fence, is that the entire perimeter of the daycare is behind a 6-foot fence. Most of which chain link. We've been working for a long time with Brent Zimmerman to have him repair his portion of that fence. He does own that part of the fence.
Okay.
My knowledge, I don't know that if the daycare rents it, so it's a landlord that owns the actual physical property. But it's just a request that we really do need to maintain the height for safety, if possible.
Yes.
And just knowing intimately how many issues that they've had with the apex of these properties coming together.
I mean, once this property is used for a business, not for, yeah. So once it's used, it's not gonna be, trespassing will probably not gonna be an issue anymore. So I think it's in everyone's best interest that this property gets back to business because I know that the situation right now is not very good.
Well, and along those lines, I would be curious if there's any plan for exterior lighting on this building. I don't know if that would be a separate package or because this is a long, parking area with a back area. If it already has a history of drug use, I just would like to make sure that there is exterior lighting of some kind in this plan. And then I also personally would love to see a little bit more green space and plantings in the area that is the parking lot. Right now, there's a small curbed green area on the street. You're not showing striping, so I'm not exactly sure, how many spaces you're fitting in here and where, but I would imagine that
I am showing, I mean, you can see there's like 3 spaces. It actually even says that owner tenant parking 3 spaces.
3 spaces.
Parallel, and then there's one ADA spot in the back.
Okay,
with
I
4
just would love to see if there's anywhere that you can add, a small area of planting towards the back or like a lot right alongside the building. I mean, I don't know the exact, I can't tell exactly where would be the right space for it, even like alongside that accessible spot. I just think Lorraine in general has such a lack of trees, median green space that like when these new projects happen, like this is like one of the only opportunities to get more trees and more plantings on this street, which sorely needs it. This is the forest city, and yet we have very few trees in a lot of the commercial corridors of this neighborhood. So that just is like a personal, strongly held opinion of mine. I don't know if there would be room to plant 1 tree in that curbed green area that you're showing right there, but anything like that I think would be really helpful for doing this project.
Okay.
Nia, are you saying that Brent owns most of this chain link fence? Or do you know?
To give context to this conversation, we've been asking Brent to fix the fence since this property, the 41 apartments have been constructed.
Yeah.
They had gotten approval, I'm fairly certain, with the plans to replace that fence, but they never did, and it's been in disrepair ever since. I don't know how the ownership lines work back here. I don't know like where the fence starts and stops in terms of ownership either. And there was Brent kind of pushed back on it, and he's like, "Oh, we don't own the fence." And then we were like, "We think you do." And he does. He came back and said, Yes, so we've been waiting for honestly years, kind of bothering every few months to try to get some action on that front, but
And would he be replacing it with new chain link fence or a different type of fence?
my understanding is that chain link is no longer to code anywhere in the city, so I don't know that that is acceptable. They haven't, to my knowledge, presented an alternative. I can't remember what was in their original proposal.
Catalin, are you aware of, do you know which portion of the chain link fence would be on your client's property?
No.
We have Zach Cooper with his hand raised, who is
Oh,
will be the building tenant. So Zach,
Okay, maybe
Go ahead.
that's better.
Hello, everyone. My apologies. I hope this is appropriate. I wasn't sure if I could raise my hand in here.
of course.
With regards, just really quickly, to the chain link fence, I don't know exactly which portions of that are on our property line and which are not yet. However, with regard to green spaces, one thing I want to point out is I am a big proponent of green spaces, of putting in as much as possible. Some of it, to be completely honest, is stuff I kind of will have to see how much budget I have for things like that. Admittedly, I'm a disabled veteran. I am not a big money person, individual. I'm not backed by any big money representation. And so I've got a lot of things that I'd love to do to beautify this and make it an awesome part of the community. But some of it will, may have to happen kind of in a staggered, layered procession as I can afford to do things like that. So obviously there are a couple of green spaces on here that we are planning, but just know that assuming this business is successful and continues to grow and develop into the community, that is part of the plan to grow as with that over time and make it as green and beautiful as possible.
And I'm sorry, remind me, is your first name Cooper? Sorry.
It's Zach.
Okay,
Cooper.
Zach, sorry. Zach, there is, I believe, Nate, can you speak to this? I believe there is a program for some tree replanting that you would probably have access to. So I think that's worth looking into. Nate, can you weigh in on that? Isn't that true?
I believe that's for residential property. So I can look into it, and Zach, me and Zach have been talking already offline, so I can look for that.
I know that Councilman McCormick has been very supportive of, re-greening of this part of the city. And so I think that it's possible that the city might be willing to partner with you to, provide the actual tree itself if you did have space for it on your property.
Yeah, I would be 100% love that if we can find a way to make that happen with some city involvement, because I'm all about making this more pedestrian friendly, making it green. We are the forest city, like you said, and so I'm on board with that, especially if we could get some assistance in making it happen.
Great, that would be great. Okay, it sounds like there isn't total clarity on the chain link fence. I'm personally not a fan of the chain link fence remaining here, but it seems like there's some lack of clarity on who even owns the chain link fence. So
that's what I have trouble understanding, is because these developers who did the townhouses, they had to get a survey done. So I would think the fence would appear on that survey on one side or the other of the property line. Wouldn't you agree with that? Am I missing something?
I think Nia seems to think that
I think
part of it is Brent's property.
majority of that fence, my understanding is that it is Brent's property, and the onus is currently on him to follow up with those replacements and repairs. But there must be like a little sliver of your property that's abutting to the daycare property, like that little last, I'm like pointing like you guys can see me, that little bit, from where the ADA spot is to the turnaround space, that's got to be between the two of the daycare property and the your property. And also anecdote, this is not a hard line for me, and just if any other daycare owner also, they're operating on, that is not a booming profitable business. So knowing that there are two very small business owners here at this conjunction is a lot different than a developer who's throwing up 26 whatever apartments and Airbnbs. So That said, like happy to continue this conversation offline and help figure that piece out and advocate where we need to. So
Thank you, Antonia. Committee members, any questions or comments, or would somebody like to make a motion?
a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right,
Nate, please call the roll.
absolutely. Doug Wall,
Aye.
Antonia Marinucci,
Aye.
Margaret Land,
Aye.
Marika Clark,
Aye.
and that's it. Alex Frondorf had to jump off, but he also said he would have approved of this. So 4-0 to approve as presented.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you guys.
And since I believe that concludes our business for today, this concludes our official meeting of the Ohio City Design Review Committee. But I would just like to informally ask the other committee members that are still here. I have noticed, I wonder if you all have noticed that regarding the little park intervention up on Detroit, next to the bop stop and the shoreway, that they put out the furniture that they had proposed, and I've actually seen people using it. Sometimes it's empty, sometimes it's used. I don't know if anybody else has noted that driving or walking by. When it was presented, there was some discussion that I forget who presented it, but the person presenting it wanted to do the fence along the shoreway because they're worried about children running into the shoreway and so forth. And so far, without, just a casual observation, seems that people are starting to use it. Anyone else have noticed
Yeah,
that?
Doug,